I'm about a 170 to 175 pound man now. I was down to 140 or below. And which at first was, oh my God, you're so ripped. And then it was like, dude, are you okay? And I would be shocked when people would ask me that. My skin turned orange.
I lost a lot of weight, but I know that I lost a lot of muscle mass too, which is not good. I saw my body drastically changing, and I loved the comments that people were making, like, oh my God, girl, you look so good. And that just was fuel to my fire to like keep doing what I was doing. But still on the inside, I was never fully 100% confident with my body. Even though I got to the size that I wanted, it wasn't because of the love that I have for my body that I'm doing these things. It was because I literally didn't like my body. Welcome back to the Medicine Podcast. My name is Mimi, and I am sitting here with my beautiful blue-eyed partner in life and love and podcasting and business, wearing his bejewels. I got him. When was that? Like last year for your birthday?
I think so.
Yeah. They match your eyes.
Thank you. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Chase, and I am barely caffeinated. Like, barely. And
we actually had to stop the recording and start again.
I had to get a little more coffee. I am trying to cut back on coffee. I think it's impacting my sleep negatively. And if you've listened to the medicine at all, you know that I've had a roller coaster ride of a relationship with sleep. And for whatever reason, I'm in one of those cycles where I can't run a few nights in a row of consistent good sleep. And so it might, of course, one of the first things you should always do when you're having sleep issues is identify stress and stressors in your life. And we think that stressful things are like, you're going through divorce or
big,
you're
stressful,
losing money
crazy life events.
And it's actually a lot of times you're exercising too much. You're having too much coffee. You're taking stimulants. You're not breathing through your belly and inhaling fully through your lungs. You're shallow breathing. Or
not having healthy boundaries with social events or people needing things from you.
Right, which is funny because that's what we're going to talk about a lot of those things today in this conversation. But the first thing I try to do is like taper my caffeine intake if I'm not having good sleep, because why not? All that saying, I've been yawning like crazy for like 2 hours, and so I've got to have a little sip of this drug right now. And so I am barely caffeinated, but going to be dialed in and very present today for this super important conversation.
Yeah, it is a really important conversation. One that we've talked about our experiences in these lanes in various episodes, but we've never had a full episode dedicated to our experience moving through and graduating from sort of orthorexic tendencies, these healthy habits that, if taken too far and meshed in your identity, can actually become very unhealthy, which is what we both experienced.
I denied this for a long time. And I'm sitting here saying, in all honesty and humility, I have struggled with disordered eating and a disordered relationship to exercise for most of my adult life. And it's taken years to get to the point where I could even admit that.
Yeah.
But this one is near and dear to my heart because disordered eating disorders is so prevalent in my life, not just because of the disordered eating habits that I've had in my rock bottoms of life, but because it's in my family. It's in so many of my friends' lives. It is pervasive in the health and wellness space. And I don't necessarily have the words or the answers or anything, but my intention for this conversation today is to be really, really honest, is to hopefully be informative, and to leave somewhat of a ramp, if you will, for more sophisticated conversations that I would like to have, and we will be having, with experts who work in psychiatric conditions like eating disorders and anorexia and bulimia and orthorexia, and these terms that we'll briefly touch on today. But it's to just hold sacred space for honest conversation around these topics, share a little bit of our experiences, and then set up what I hope to be some really, really powerful conversations with people who are putting in work in this field.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, kind of a disclaimer to this whole conversation. We're 4 years into podcasting and haven't had a full episode on this. One of the reasons being this is like a really intimate conversation. This is basically opening up our chest cavities and mind cavities, brain cavities, and letting people know, like, some of the darkest places that we've been in our health journey and what was going through our mind, what was going through our body at this time. And I know our experience is not it's not uncommon, this experience of orthorexic tendencies and letting a healthy lifestyle basically take over your life and identity. But every person has a unique experience in this, under this umbrella topic. And I just want to, preface with that it's not an easy place to go back to. Like, we were talking about this, a couple days ago when we were prepping for this conversation. Like, it's not easy to go back into the mindset of when I was at my lowest point health-wise. So just, asking for grace and understanding. We are simply here to share our experience, and then in hopes that it might resonate with someone who's literally in it right now, or maybe freshly out of it, and like trying to incorporate truly like holistically healthy practices into their life, and hoping that we can just sort of be a friend to say, like, dude, I know how you feel, or girl, I know how you feel. I've been there, and you will get through this, and it'll make you stronger, and you'll learn a lot about yourself through this process.
Totally. If you haven't picked it up, the episode is about eating disorders and disordered eating. And if you have a tendency to want to shut this off right now because maybe you don't think that's applicable to you, I guarantee you are 1 degree of separation away from somebody who's dealing with this. You'll see when I read the statistics, it's bonkers how many people are dealing with disordered eating in some fashion, or all the way to, a full-blown eating disorder. So the intention of today is to gently, safely have these conversations. I will be layering in so many disclaimers because this is a diagnosed condition when we talk about eating disorders. And then when we talk about disordered eating, it's a little more loosely used, and there's probably a real large array of things that could probably fall into these categories. And so disclaimer number 1 is we are not experts in this space. This is a very nuanced topic that deals with psychiatric conditions, neither of which you or I have any sort of professional training in dealing with. But we will talk about them. And the framework of the episode is to really define some terms, set a little bit of a framework for how eating disorders and disordered eating sort of historically manifested into this really problematic issue that we live with now currently in 2024. Some of the staggering statistics as it pertains to the prevalence of eating disorders in the world that we live in. And then you and I are going to share some of our experiences throughout our history of dealing with what we've kind of identified, not having been diagnosed, as orthorexic tendencies. And we'll get into some of those definitions. And then hopefully leave you with a big audio or video hug. And some things that you can think about or do going out into the world, whether you're directly dealing with something like this, or somebody who has compulsive neurotic tendencies as it pertains to their food and movement behavior. So that's a little bit of the framework, and I think we can just jump in.
Yeah. First, I'm going to say we would love if this episode resonates with you in any way, to share it. If you would share it on your story or send it to someone you love. We try to make this a really like safe, loving container of education and just sharing our experience. And you never know who it could help. So if it resonates with you, we would love for you to share. It would mean a lot to us.
And definitely go to YouTube and search the Medicine Podcast. Even if you don't watch the full video, if you're somebody who listens to the audio, if you go onto YouTube and just comment on the video, that is where we're pointing people to have conversation and dialogue with us. So yes, please share it on Instagram and DM us if you feel compelled. But we are going to be making an effort of checking every YouTube comment that we have, because it's almost like just an easier way to communicate with the people who are listening or watching our podcasts. And so I really want to point people towards that channel. We're going to be engaging more and more with comments, and we have on a couple old videos. People have commented and said that they watched or given us feedback, and we'll also use all of that to craft future episodes. Check out our YouTube.
In this little cup, I have my favorite way to enjoy mushy love, which is in combination with cold milk. We drink raw cow's milk, and I put it about 8 ounces of milk in with about a scoop and a half of mushy love. That combination, like the cold version of mushy love, tastes like liquid graham crackers. Like, I shit you not. If you don't know yet what mushy love is, it's our mushroom elixir with 500 milligrams of chaga, which is amazing for gut support. They call it the king of mushrooms. And then 500 milligrams as well of tremella mushroom, which is the beauty mushroom. And she is most known for holding 500 times her weight in water. The more hydrated we are, the more plump and dewy and fresh and young our skin looks.
Plump and dewy.
For Mushy Love, go to getmushylove.com and you can use the code MEDICINE for a nice little discount that we only give to our Medicine podcast listeners.
Let's lay some foundation to this conversation, and it's just going to be some definition of terms as well as breaking down the types of most known eating disorders. These are Google searched definitions, everybody. So this is not off the top of my head. I'm going to be reading this because I want to be delicate around these areas. So eating disorder versus disordered eating. An eating disorder is clinically diagnosed mental health condition characterized by abnormal eating habits, distorted body image, and often an intense fear of gaining weight. Examples include anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, binge eating disorder, and many others. We're going to be defining these further. Eating disorders significantly impact a person's physical and mental well-being, often requiring professional intervention for a diagnosis and subsequent treatment. Disordered eating refers to a range of abnormal eating behaviors or attitudes that may not meet the criteria for a diagnosed eating disorder, but are still like really unhealthy. It can include irregular eating patterns, chronic diarrhea. That's where my mouth wanted to go, by the way.
To chronic diarrhea.
Chronic dieting, preoccupation with food, body dissatisfaction, and an obsession with weight and appearance. Disordered eating may affect an individual's overall health and well-being, but might not reach the severity level required for a specific eating disorder diagnosis.
Yeah. So the main difference is the severity. So a clinically diagnosed eating disorder is, probably someone that's been doing this or been doing it to such a degree that it's like it could be like life-threatening if they stay on this path, where disordered eating is a little trickier to spot. It's a little trickier because someone can look really healthy from the outside, this defined fit sick person, walk into any gym, and probably a good portion of people that look really good probably have some tendencies towards this, just based on the statistics that we're gonna talk about. So it seems to be like the severity. I think people with sort of like low level chronic disordered eating can go a long time, and it may or may not, really like threaten their life. But if they stayed on that track, it could get to the point where it was like needed to be diagnosed.
Totally. Yeah. So there are several types of eating disorders, each of which have their own characteristics. And so just to name the most common, I think everybody would be familiar with anorexia nervosa. Nervosa means of the nerves. So anorexia, which characteristics include intense fear of gaining weight, distorted body image, extreme calorie restriction, which is just not eating, excessive exercise, and a denial of severity of these conditions, including a denial of the low body weight issue, the complete distortion of whether they are of low body weight, that the low body weight is bad for them. There's a complete denial of those. Unfortunately, this is really predominant in females, and it often begins early in adolescence, but it can manifest later in life as well, seemingly out of nowhere. But oftentimes it is something that there's trace signs of from an early age.
And then we have, moving on to bulimia nervosa, or, commonly just called bulimia. This is, recurrent episodes of binge eating, which just is like eating a shit ton of food, like way more than you need to be satiated, followed by behaviors like vomiting or really excess exercise or fasting even. And these individuals might even like look normal from the outside. They may walk by you on the street and you have no idea, versus someone who has anorexia. If they have a very low body weight, it's usually really apparent. Now, I will say with bulimia, as a dental hygienist, I saw this with women when I would be, obviously doing an oral exam or cleaning their teeth. People who are often vomiting their food up, that stomach acid starts to erode the enamel in certain areas of your teeth. So you will see a pattern on people's teeth. And I've been in that situation a couple times where I was really like in a hard place because I could tell what was going on just by looking at the person's teeth and looking at the pattern of where this erosion was really taking place. And yeah, I didn't have a good way to like bring this up. I just had to speak plainly at like, here's what I'm seeing and here's a host of what this could be, and just like let them know like I'm seeing this and this is really bad. But other than that, people besides your dentist and dental hygienist might not know that there's anything, off there.
Totally. Yeah. What was interesting to me about bulimia is that I always associated anorexia is when you don't eat and you're just starving. Bulimia is when you make yourself throw up after eating. And it's actually just binging and purging of any kind. So like excessive exercise. The amount of times that in my head where I had a night out where I drank a lot and I ate bar food and that kind of stuff, didn't sleep good, and then got up the next morning and decided to work out for 2 hours because I was doing the calorie math in my head. I'm like, oh my God, maybe that was a tendency more closely aligned with bulimia than it would have been, maybe something else. So that was definitely eye-opening for me. And of course, it makes sense. I've been surprised at times, and I think others can resonate with this, when you hear about somebody who has an eating disorder and they don't look frail. They don't look like bone skinny. Yeah. And it's because the calories in, calories out might actually stay relatively neutral if you are binging and purging. But it's going to be these other symptoms like the deteriorating teeth. It's going to be your hormones, right? It's you lose your period, you lose your hair, your skin, you're inflamed, you have inflammation in your gut, you've got inflammation in your face. And so there are these other problematic side effects of having an eating disorder, even one that sort of like net calories in and calories out is relatively neutral. Orthorexia, we've mentioned this a couple times. This is one that I had never heard of until we started self-diagnosing ourselves and our patterns. But the characteristics of orthorexia would be obsessive focus on eating healthy foods or doing healthy things, even supplements and exercise, to the extent that it interferes with daily healthy lifestyle factors, leading to just excessively, almost like compounding restrictive patterns in life in the way that you eat and do pretty much everything.
Yeah, and it can be like, what I'm about to say could fit within all of these eating disorders, but the thing that would come up in me, which obviously we're going to talk about our experiences, but we sort of, resonate with this orthorexia nervosa type label for what we went through. But I would say to myself with certain foods, oh no, I can't have that. I can't have that. I can't have that. As if having it would make me somehow a bad person or a worse person. So it's like these foods are like, or these practices are woven into your identity, or like, oh no, I can't skip a workout. Like that's not who I am. And so it's like, it becomes these healthy habits go to such an extreme that they are just totally intertwined with who you think you are.
Totally.
So if you don't do that thing, just right, then what does it mean about you? Are you even a healthy person? So it's...
I one time I was in Chicago for a work trip and I forgot my MCT oil. And I was in this like keto phase. And I got up super early in the morning to go to a natural grocer in downtown Chicago to get my MCT oil after having traveled all day and I had meetings and everything that I was prepping for just to get my freaking MCT oil.
Oh my God. We could fill an entire podcast with just stories about like, oh my God, listen to the crazy shit I did.
But orthorexia is oftentimes this obsession with being healthy, with being clean, with being pure. And there's you know a lot of clickbait out there around kind of the health space and the wellness space with this sort of like purity obsession, and that there's this deep subconscious almost religious relationship to purity. And there's a host of things that lead into that, and that's a rabbit trail that we're not going to go into today, but know that we're aware of it, and it's something that I'm kind of interested in, is the psychology behind purity and this obsession with purity. And then there's this bucket, there's a host of other eating disorders and behavioral patterns that kind of fall into these other, basically like everything else, other specified feeding and eating disorders. But the one that is often not talked about in the realm of eating disorders, because it's usually associated with calorie restriction, some distorted version of health, is actually binge eating disorder. And that is recurring episodes of eating large quantities of food in short periods of time. This is like the full loss of control during these binge episodes. And instead of purging as a response, you actually sit with the guilt and the shame. And so this eating disorder is oftentimes associated with obesity. And so it's in this 2024, there's still a bunch of shame around binge eating and obesity, but there's almost this movement to attempt to validate obesity and excess weight. And so I feel like binge eating disorder, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you'd watch a show on like TLC or something and you'd see like uber fat people and they try to lose weight, or even like Biggest Loser, which is a completely distorted version of how you should lose weight. But it was so understood that binge eating and excessive eating was an unhealthy thing. And the crazy part now is that there is this movement to validate obesity. Completely separate from the conversation around health. It's just that the way you look is fine and it's okay.
It's the swing, which is so common for us as humans. It's really frustrating, but we swing from like diet culture and low fat everything, be super skinny, that's the ideal, to swinging this way where now, there's like fat, I think they're called like fat influencers. I don't want to get that wrong. I'm not trying to degrade at all. I'm just saying, I think that that's what they're called, is sort of these influencers that flaunt the fact that they are obese and that you can be healthy at any size, quote unquote. And unfortunately, in the past couple months, I think like 4 or 5 of these different types of obese influencers talking about this have actually passed away. And it's not something to be laughed at. It's not something to be poked at. That's not the point. It's just like we have to observe what's actually happening in reality. And so it's like we're never going to be a balanced, harmonious human race if we're swinging from one end of the spectrum to the other. Like, mantra that we've said a million times on this podcast and that we use in our own lives is like, not too much, not too little. Like, where's the balance? And that's where we need to get to with health and eating and all of these things. And we're just not there.
So here's another disclaimer, and I'll have a few of these today. Eating disorders impact and affect people from all backgrounds, genders, and ages. One of the things that I was looking into is like, is there a specific, demographic that is dealing with this, or a specific age group? And the usual response is it really affects everybody, and it can occur across diverse populations and diverse groups of people. And of course, societal impact can shift those in statistically in one particular direction or the other. But
it's not just women, it's men and women.
But what's crucial for individuals experiencing these symptoms, if these resonate in any way, or are concerned about maybe people in their life who feature some of these symptoms, is to seek professional help for a diagnosis and a treatment. So that's the first of probably 4 times I'll be saying that today. couple quotes. I was looking into eating disorders often as we were prepping for this episode, and just a couple of quotes that really were powerful. I wanted to share before we get into a little bit of the history of eating disorders, because it might resonate for someone as it has for me, and it's just really powerful. One, and there's anonymous quotes, so I'm not sure who said them. I am forever engaged in a silent battle in my head over whether or not to lift the fork to my mouth, and when I talk myself into doing so, I taste only shame. I have an eating disorder. Wow. The battle is literally in the fork.
And it's so sad because it's not like alcohol where you can just give up alcohol and you don't have to drink the rest of your life. We all have to eat.
Right.
And so if you struggle with things like this, if you struggle with disordered eating or a severe eating disorder, it's an everyday thing because we can't not eat.
We all have to breathe too.
Yeah.
Do you have guilt and shame or fear every time you take an inhalation?
Yeah.
It's obviously not that frequent, but it's on the same line. Another quote, having anorexia doesn't mean you don't eat. It means you're consumed by a voice of constantly telling you that you are not good enough. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably what we'll be talking about a lot today.
There's a lot of things behind the things.
Yeah.
It's never just about the superficial details. You know, there's always more to the story of why we make the decisions that we do, even if we know intellectually that it's not healthy.
Totally. All right, so I'm going to briefly give a little history of eating disorders, and then I'm just going to pass to you to read some of the statistics.
Yeah.
But in short, it's nothing mind-blowing. Eating disorders, there's evidence for it, even in ancient cultures. Certain eating habits and behaviors would potentially be chalked up to disordered eating in certain circumstances. And by the 19th century, this is late 1800s, anorexia becomes a term. Mm. And it's beginning to be evaluated by various, psychiatrists and a host of other medical spaces. By mid 1900s, you've got a few different names for clinically diagnosed eating disorders: anorexia, bulimia. This relationship between binging and purging is something that's being talked about and articulated, and questioning why and where does this come from. And then by the time you're in the late 90s and early 2000s, this is a thing.
Yeah,
and it's prevalent, and there's entire sections of psychiatric care that are dedicated to eating disorders and trauma and this whole host of issues. And so the as you'll get into with these statistics, the staggering piece of all of this is it's growing and it's more prevalent. Yeah. And throughout history, we can see that.
Yeah, it's definitely not shrinking. So let's run through some of the statistics. And honestly, these blew my mind.
Yeah.
I knew in my head that it was really prevalent, that this is a thing that a lot of people deal with, just by sheer numbers of my own friends, including me and you, who have struggled with this at some point in their life. I can name 10 friends at the drop of a hat who have dealt with this. So just by that, and I know we're in sort of a niche health and wellness space, so maybe it's more prevalent in these, but I don't know. I think it can be really anyone.
Well, so many people that I know in the wellness space have not undiagnosed disordered eating or eating disorders. And so I know that they're excluded from these statistics, and they're still staggering.
Yeah.
We are excluded from these statistics, and we have history of disordered eating.
Because we've never been diagnosed. This is just our own experience and reflection.
Yeah. So still, even with these numbers, it's mind-blowing.
All right. So of the U.S. population, 28.8 million Americans will have an eating disorder in their lifetime. That is a lot of bodies. The overall lifetime prevalence of eating disorders is estimated to be 8.6% among females and 4.07% among males, which, again, these are diagnosed. So 8% doesn't sound like much of the population, but again, this is just the people who are being diagnosed. In the United States, 69 to 84% of women experience body dissatisfaction and really desiring to be a lower weight than they currently are.
It's nuts.
It's
you get a room of 10 ladies, and there are 2 of them that don't feel dissatisfaction with their body.
Yeah. Let's see. Rates of eating disorders in males are actually increasing at a faster rate than for females.
And I totally have some theories on this. This is not statistically validated, but go to a gym, take a minute and go into bodybuilding forums. And these are huge spaces. Steroid use, testosterone use, they're skyrocketing. And the lust for the ultimate masculine physique, I've never seen more of, and obviously prevalent with social media. You can't help but just see guys who are jacked out of their freaking mind. My Explore page is all shirtless, jacked dudes, which is just so hilarious. But it's like, when I see that, I'm like, I'm actually not surprised. There's also a strong association with endurance athletes and high intensity athletes like CrossFit folks.
Well, think about too,
triathletes,
like
Ironmen. They're very compulsive. They're very control. They get off on the control of it. And so even if they're not like trying to look super hot, like super jacked like The Rock, they may have a very compulsive, neurotic relationship to their exercise because they almost have to be these high intensity athletes.
Yeah.
And that quickly trickles into eating disorders, or you have to maintain a weight.
Yeah, like boxers or MMA or UFC or whatever.
And so you're going to these hacks in order to gain or lose weight to meet the qualifications of your particular sport, and all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're actually in a compulsive eating habit. And so that number does not surprise me at all.
Yeah. So this one is so sad. Every 52 minutes, one person dies as a direct consequence of an eating disorder. Global eating disorder prevalence increased from 3.5% to 7.8% between 2000 and 2018.
Nuts.
I would say probably the largest contributing factor there is the use of social media and, being able to compare yourself to anyone and everyone, and then also just circulating bad information about health and wellness.
Right.
Eating disorders have the second highest mortality rate of any psychiatric illness behind opiate addiction.
And here's what drives me nuts about the body validation movement that we're in. It's still about the body. We're still putting our focus on the body.
Yeah.
So whether we're trying to validate someone's overweight or underweight, we're hyper focusing on someone's body instead of saying, actually, we should be focusing on health. How do we measure health? We're still talking about weight. It's completely nuts to me.
Yeah.
And whether you're saying your weight is bad or your weight is good, you're still talking about weight and you're not talking about health. And the more we talk about weight, the more we're going to be feeding this eating disorder crisis.
Yeah, I totally agree. In a nationally representative U.S.-based study, up to 23% of individuals with binge eating disorder had attempted suicide, and virtually all, about 94%, reported lifetime mental health symptoms. 70% mood disorders, 68% substance use disorders, 59% anxiety disorders, 49% borderline personality disorder, and 32% post-traumatic stress disorder. So what this is saying is people who have engaged in binge eating disorder usually have some other mental health issues associated, or they're experiencing other mental health issues aside from just binging food. And virtually all, 94%, reporting mental health symptoms, which is pretty freaking crazy. And so, it just it makes me sad.
Totally. It's
honestly, it's just so sad that this is such a huge deal. And, we still have just really bad information out there that's not helpful. That's not actually helpful to people who are struggling.
Yeah. nationaleatingdisorders.org/statistics is where I got these numbers. And this is just a snapshot of a bunch of different statistics they have. They also cite the studies with links under each statistic. So if you wanted to look at more, or if you wanted to check our math, you're welcome to go to that website. And that seems like the organization is doing a lot of things. So that's really, really cool. Obviously, there are some factors that are leading to this problem, this statistical nightmare, right? And so I want to list a few of those. And again, these are our best guesses, but social, cultural, and just media influence at large. Come on. It's undeniable. The promotion of thinness, being lean or even being buff, they change from social circle to social circle. Tiny waist, big ass, that seems to be like the current version of the female body that we all need to, put on top of the mountain. Media, advertising, the algorithms that we use, the social circles that we're a part of. If you go to San Diego, the ideal body type looks a lot different than the body type in Seattle. It just does. I've lived in both cities for long periods of time, and my body has shifted and accommodated towards skinny, coffee drinking, cigarette smoking, hiking people in the Pacific Northwest, or beach, gym, muscle beach, wellness space, supplements, protein, let's go bro,
bodybuilder, influencer. Yeah.
It just changes. And so these, of course, contribute to the way that you view food and the way that you view exercise. And then, of course, there's a more recent fat acceptance movement for clearly unhealthy people in many, many cases.
Which I just want to pause there for a second, because this actually blows my mind that someone, who is morbidly obese, and we know all of the health implications, like increased risk for basically every systemic issue, that it blows my mind that people are pressing and pushing this idea that they can be healthy at that size. It's the exact same, because they might have some sort of, clearly they have maybe some hormone imbalances, maybe they have binge eating disorder, whatever it is that's getting them to that unhealthy size. How can we could swing it the other way and look at a woman who's 75 pounds with anorexia nervosa, and she thinks she's overweight or fat or whatever. That is absolute madness for the internet, the interweb, people on social media to tell that woman, no, girl, you're healthy. You can be healthy at any weight. You're good. You're beautiful. You're all yeah, she might be beautiful, but it's actually insane. You're not helping that person by saying those things. And so it swings both ways. The insanity of it is just actually mind blowing to me.
Totally.
Because you would never say that to a woman who's clearly underweight and looks like she is unwell. The same applies for the other side of the spectrum. How is this happening?
It's happening because huge money is behind people being obese and continuing to consume the products that are supporting their obesity. But again, rabbit trail, another topic.
Yeah.
Genetic and biological factors definitely play a role. We're doing a lot of research into genes right now. We just did some gene testing. We haven't got our results yet, but I've been learning so much about this process. For instance, your neurotransmitter activity oftentimes is related to genetic factors. And for instance, I've been looking at this one particular gene called COMT, and it dictates your ability to metabolize stress, essentially. And stress comes in and stress comes out. And that in-between period is how long you experience the chemical byproduct of stress, which turns into, for many people, anxiety and stress and
insomnia.
And a lot of times, eating disorder isn't just immediately the byproduct, but if you are stressed out and you feel like you're losing control in your life, as we'll talk about in our own experiences, you fixate on what you can control. And geez, food is one of those things that's so easy to sort of pseudo mitigate the stress that you're experiencing in your life. And these, in many, many cases, trickle into the fact that you are genetically set up to probably have a likelihood that might lean into, if the environment's correct, or the circumstances are set up for it, an eating disorder.
Yeah. Then we have psychological factors that obviously play a role here. Individuals with low self-esteem who fixate on perfectionism. Maybe they have a huge amount of childhood trauma that hasn't been worked through, mood disorders. All of these things can also play a role in the development of eating disorders. So I think it's important to also say here that the increase in reported cases of eating disorders could also be attributed to the improved awareness of these different eating disorders and disordered eating, better diagnostic criteria, an increased willingness of individuals to seek help as therapy has become less taboo in our culture. Maybe more of these people are finding real professionals and getting diagnosed. So it could be a combination of things that's contributing to this rise in these numbers. But either way, it's a problem. And body dysmorphia and full-blown eating disorders in the modern world are I don't think going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
With our current landscape.
Totally. The last thing I'll say before we get into sharing a little bit about our own journeys through this is that eating disorders and disordered eating is very multifaceted.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, why we're going to bring on some legit professionals to get into the weeds even further. That was just a little bit of a taste. But addressing these conditions often requires a very comprehensive, multidisciplinary approach, including education and awareness. You got to name it to tame it, right? Like, I'm not saying that's the fix every time. I definitely don't believe in naming to taming, because people get obsessed with naming it and then they identify with the name and they become this victim. That's just a little piece of it. But mental, emotional, and dude, for me, it was even spiritual support needed. Oftentimes, social and or relational changes have to be made. So this is not there's not a silver bullet.
No.
And oftentimes this includes a team of people, because you might go to a psychiatrist or a therapist and they're dealing with some aspect of the psyche. But if you are someone who hyper focuses on food, fitness, and your aesthetic appearance, and you're sitting next to a doctor or an individual who doesn't particularly look healthy, the first thing you're going to do is like, they don't value health. Yeah. They're not going to be able to help me because I value health. I'll talk about it in my journey. A personal trainer was more impactful to me than sitting down and trying to diagnose my compulsions, because I was able to see firsthand communication that transcended words, in the sense that this person who was training me was buff, had a very moderate lifestyle, worked out 4 times a week, ate 3 meals a day, always never ate past being full, but never underate at the same time. And I looked at this person and I was like, I think I've been lying to myself, because I might be able to moderate and look this good.
Because you had told yourself a story that you have to do these things to maintain a lean body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the point is...
Shout out to Steven, the point. The point is to shout out to Steven.
The point is, this is multifaceted. Oftentimes, it might require like a team of people to work through.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Might be a coach, a trainer, maybe a therapist, maybe a shaman.
Right.
Not that I'm pushing people towards that. It needs to be definitely a call that you hear from within yourself.
Yeah.
Exploring plant medicine and things. But yeah, do you want to jump into our personal experiences?
Yeah, let's get into our journeys through disordered eating. But first, guys, if you're loving the medicine, we would love to connect with you on our newsletter.
Yeah.
We send out a newsletter every single week called the Medicine Drop. And we include a host of things. We include usually a quote and a journal prompt for the week. We always include links to our podcasts and our products. We give discounts out to our products. Oh, and once a week, we give away a free product. Oftentimes, it's our Mushy Love or our Immune Intel HCC.
Could be Organifi or King Coffee or anything that's in our medicine
cabinet. Or a book that we have had a guest on the show talking about. So jump into the newsletter. We would love to see you, and you can check the link in the show notes to sign up for the Medicine Drop.
Yep.
All right. Take me through your journey.
All right. So, yes, I will share my travels through orthorexia land. I'm making light of it, but it really was a really tough lesson for me that stems all the way back to me in elementary school. And I took some notes here, so if it sounds like I'm reading or if I'm looking down, that's why I literally wrote my story out. So yeah, I've dealt with body image issues and dysmorphia since I was very young, probably about 3rd or 4th grade. It didn't manifest into, anything related to food, like restricting food or binging or, excess exercise or anything like that until later in life. But from a very young age, I was never like proud of my body or fully confident about my physical appearance. And I've shared this story many times on the podcast, I feel like, but yeah, I had a really tough conversation with my dad, or rather he had a conversation with me when I was very young, and basically pointed out that, said the words like, you need to go on a diet. And I've always been like naturally like a muscular build, and different than my sisters who were more like naturally very like wiry and skinny. I have my mom's body, and she's thicker. She has thick limbs and muscular tone to her body, and very athletic looking. And so the comparison really started very young, always aware of my very skinny friends and sisters through junior high and high school. I felt different because I wasn't naturally skinny. I never became overweight or obese, but just that naturally thicker, muscular, athletic build was something that I was always thinking about. And then I go through high school with this feeling, and then through college, and right about my senior year of dental hygiene school. So this was me about 20, 21, 22 years old, around there. We were recently engaged, and I started prepping like so many women do for our wedding. I told myself, I want to look bomb. I want to look banging on my wedding day. I want to look back at these pictures and know that I did everything I could to be the size that I want. And that's what I did. I am a type 3 achiever, and I achieved that with flying colors, not in a healthy or, particularly good way, but what this looked like was I downloaded the app MyFitnessPal, and they have a little like equation. They say, okay, what's your weight now? What weight do you want to be? And then they do this math where it's like, okay, so if you want to lose this much weight or be this size, be this weight, then you need to eat this amount of calories. So the calories that they prescribed to me was about 1,200 calories a day, which now what I know
just wild
is just the perfect equation to actually trash your metabolism, just to reduce calories and be in a constant deficit. That is a great way to trash your metabolism and actually end up doing more harm than good. Storing body fat, things like that. It's just not good. But I didn't know what I didn't know. So I started tracking every bite of food with MyFitnessPal, and I wasn't necessarily really strict yet with food. I wasn't like, oh, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. It was more just like, I'm going to eat as healthy as I can, as healthy as what I think, and I'm just going to limit it to this 1,200 calories. Well, I was also exercising basically every day during dental hygiene school. I would either go in the morning before or go after with my friends, and this looked like 30 to 45 minutes of just straight running on the treadmill, and then it would be followed up by another 30 to 45 minutes of weight training, of resistance training. And I had no like plan. I would literally go on Pinterest and look up arm workout, and I would do like arms that day, or like ab workout, and I would do abs, or leg, or whatever, or I would just like rotate around the machines. There was no plan, there was no like coherence. It was just like,
which is totally normal.
It's totally normal, and it's just part of the process of individuating and becoming a wise adult and figuring out how to actually move your body in an intelligent way. So this is where I was at. So it was about an hour and a half of working out every single day, as well as being very active at my dental hygiene school. You're running around clinic. It's a very stressful environment, as you can imagine. And I was really striving to be top of my class and ace every test and pass with flying colors. And I was able to do that. But it really took a toll on my body, my stress levels, hormones, everything. I hadn't really gotten to the point yet where I was noticing like physical manifestations of symptoms or anything. I was just noticing like whatever I'm doing is working. So I better do it more and better.
I do remember you had like canker sores all over the inside of your mouth.
Yeah, I did. And that was just because probably a host of things, but I was very stressed, and they're usually stress induced for me, these sores inside my mouth. And then I was just in a very acidic state all the time. So yeah, the MyFitnessPal equation worked in that I lost a lot of weight, but I know that I lost a lot of muscle mass too, which is not good. I saw my body drastically changing, and I loved the comments that people were making, like, "Oh my God, girl, you look so good. I haven't seen you in forever. What are you doing? You look amazing." And that just was fuel to my fire to like keep doing what I was doing. But still on the inside, I was never fully 100% confident with my body. Even though I got to the size that I wanted, I was never fully confident, because again, it was externally based. It wasn't because of the love that I have for my body that I'm doing these things. It was because I literally didn't like my body. So I was doing these things. So we get married, we move to Seattle, we start adulting, which is also stressful. And there was less, with both of us working full time and commute, I was riding the bus to and from work, and then I would come home and make dinner, and there just wasn't as much time in my schedule to work out. So inevitably I worked out less. And then I combining that with, I stopped tracking my food. So I didn't really know how many calories I was, getting. And I created the story in my mind that I needed to cook like your mom, and I needed to make big meals with bread and ice cream and dessert and this and that. Like, I don't know where the story came from. It was completely from my own brain. So I started eating foods that I hadn't in years. And of course, my body started clinging to this extra influx of calories and then less working out. And so after the first year of marriage, I had gained probably about 20 to 25 pounds and felt absolutely miserable in my body. I felt just like the lowest I had ever felt about my body. I was like ashamed, because I had gotten to that size for our wedding that I was actually like proud of. And I knew like, oh, I can be skinny. And then after a year of marriage, my body just hanging on to this and just absorbing it, it felt like a sponge. I did not feel sexy or confident. I had horrible inner dialogue with myself. I didn't even want to talk to you about it, because I was just ashamed. And I of course, it like impacted our intimacy and my confidence in that, and a whole host of things impacted our intimacy for sure. But that was certainly one of them. I just didn't even want to admit that I had gotten myself to this point. And then after about a year of marriage, we had this infamous lake talk where we were leaving Priest Lake, and I just broke down in the car as we're leaving the lake, and I just was like, I can't do this anymore, and I'm just not happy. And I just like let the floodgates open, and you just received this vomiting, this projectile vomiting of my feelings of self-hatred over the last year. And I don't even know what I said or how it came out. I just knew that I finally told you that I was like not happy with my body and me, and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. I was very scared and concerned, and I felt so bad, and I had no clue. Like, I was literally blown away when you were like, I gained weight. I'm like, haven't even noticed it.
Which is so crazy, because you could look at the side-by-side pictures, and it's a drastic change.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously it speaks to the fact that you just love me.
You've done that where you've shown me the pictures, and I'm like, oh, I guess, yes, you're right. I guess you're right.
Yeah.
But I've always just loved you. Again, loved you so much. And I was in my own sort of like hell. My first year of my career, I was on the road all the time. Seeing you felt like, just medicine every time. So I wasn't like tracking your weight.
Yeah, no, I know. And obviously I'm grateful for that. You know, that's the ideal, but
it's a pivotal moment in my journey too, which I'll get to. Yeah. That sort of, from there, we made a radical shift in the way that we ate food.
Yeah. And so I flipped the switch again, and I became obsessed. In my mind, skinny meant healthy. So I just needed to get skinny again. And we both became obsessive. And I think, there were so many things that we were doing wrong, but we could also feel like things within our relationship at this time, like drifting apart and not having a deep spiritual connection. Exercise and very strict eating gave us both like a sense of control over our life. And that maybe if we were happier with our external, appearance, that somehow our life and relationship would also get better magically. Like there was no like conscious thought going into this. It was all subconscious and unconscious programming and stories and all of that. But we did both sort of navigate this in the same way. And it was really, really dysfunctional.
Well, and I was on the road, so I was gone 4 or 5 days a week, which anybody who has neurotic tendencies, when nobody's watching you and you don't have that social pressure, you get like free reign on how crazy you can be. And so I was doing the same thing on the road. I was hyper focused on my food and making sure that I was exercising like every day. Just making sure, because I was going out to eat with clients and staying up late and drinking, that I was working it all off.
And I was the same. And I look back now and I was so undernourished, so under protein, like it's just laughable, but this is where we were at. So you guys know our story. We separated and divorced in 2016. And after this, things got even worse for me, because now my inner dialogue is not only just associated with my physical appearance, but also my emotional state and how I carried myself through our marriage and how I handled the separation and divorce. Like it was weighing on me, but I was not allowing myself to go there. So now I had the stresses of the external, physical validation that I was seeking, but also the dumpster fire that was my emotional and mental and spiritual state. And then this is when, up until this point, I really didn't see much like physically manifest in symptoms. And because the body is resilient and it can go for a while on low calories, low protein, and it can get by. But for me, I got to this point where my body was screaming at me to make a change, and I just ignored it, because I liked how I was looking and feeling and, fitting into my clothes and stuff. And so at this point, I really started to notice physical manifestations, physical symptoms that I was not okay with. My hair was falling out in clumps. I had a rash on half my body. I had cystic acne for the first time in my life. I was one of those annoying girls in high school that never had a zit and like knew nothing about washing my face or anything. And then get to, being a young adult or in my, 20s. And now I have these like painful cystic acne. I couldn't digest any of my food, extremely low stomach acid. I had fainting spells. I had a self-induced hypothyroidism. So this is when everything kind of came to a head. And my identity at this point was so enmeshed with my healthy habits and cutting out foods that I thought would hinder my progress. So it was I was cutting out foods right and left. And I would then tell myself and even tell other people out loud, oh, I'm not a person who eats bread. I'm not a person who eats sugar. I'm not a person who eats dessert. So it was like enmeshed with my identity. I was in such a restrictive state all the time that this is so weird to observe in yourself. I was so restricted, so under calories, so undernourished for 99% of the time that sometimes I would have there would be like a glitch in the matrix where, working at a dental office, people bring in cookies and candy and cupcakes and treats all the time, weirdly, at a dentist office. It happens all the time. Same in like other medical providers' offices or whatever. So this stuff would be around all the time in like the break room. And so I'd go back there for a little sip of water or whatever. And once in a while, nobody would be in there and I would sneak. I would like rush. I would like take a cookie and like just shove it in my mouth and like go in the bathroom and just enjoy the experience by myself. But I wouldn't let anyone else see what I was doing because I had this identity, this persona to uphold to my coworkers and friends and family that I was the healthy girl.
Yeah.
I wasn't the girl that ate sugar. So I was like sneaking this. It was so bizarre. And I can't tell you what was going on in my mind. It was just like a break in my judgment at the time. And yeah, really, really interesting to look back on. But
yeah, there's a lot there,
yeah,
psychologically.
Yes.
And when you've tabooed something, and this is across the board. If you taboo things in life at large, when you engage with that taboo and nobody's looking, you experience weird pleasure from it.
Yeah. But then it's very short-lived.
It's short-lived. You've dammed something up, and that the dam has no open gates. And so when you open one gate, it's going to blow it open because you've been literally not allowing any relief for so long.
Yeah.
It's just too much for one moment to be able to handle from how much you've been keeping dammed up.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that it's kind of scary, honestly. But yeah, so you feel that initial pleasure, but then it's followed by guilt and shame and even worse inner dialogue. Like, you're so weak. You can't even say no, or, this just hatred of self perpetuates. So at this time, all these physical manifestations started to manifest, and I knew that something was wrong, but I wasn't yet fully taking ownership of my experience. I just thought, well, something's wrong with me. I better go to a naturopathic doctor to figure it out. I knew enough at this point that like mainstream medicine was not going to be able to help me. So I got a recommendation for a naturopath and went and had blood work done and food sensitivity test. And she had me like track my food and she wanted to see like what I was eating on a day-to-day basis. And she tried her best to help me, but I was not in a state, like I said, I was not in a position yet where I was willing to take full ownership of what I was doing to myself. So she would give me advice to like, girl, you just need to like, chill and like eat a sandwich. It's okay. And I would be like, that's not my problem. I would be like sassy about it and just was not willing to like really hear her. But of course, she was right. The feeling of just chill. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be absolutely perfect. But one of the appointments that I had with her, she said something to me that really stuck. And she was looking at my blood work and my hormone levels, which I had basically zero estrogen, like zero. And she asked me, do you want to have kids someday? And at the time I was just like, yeah, of course. I didn't realize that what she was saying was that currently, if you wanted to have kids right now, you probably wouldn't be able to. You are having self-induced fertility issues based on what I'm looking at with your hormones. And I was just like, yeah, someday. And I wasn't picking up. She was very kind and she didn't just like blatantly spell it out for me. She was just like, okay. But that's what she was saying is like, currently you are infertile. So here's the thing with all of this. I thought what I was doing was healthy. I didn't know that fasting every day for a year was not healthy because I had heard someone talk about how great fasting is for the body. I thought everything that I was doing was healthy. And obviously they weren't, because we know that the body doesn't lie. The body's always reflecting back to us how well we are being God to it. But I still was in this position where I was not ready to assume responsibility. Finally, we're rounding third here. Finally, I'll never forget the day that I really woke up and I was in the shower and washing my hair, and another huge clump of hair fell out in my hand, and I just crumpled to the floor and told myself, I have to figure this out. No one is going to figure this out for me. The abs are not worth it. And I knew that I had to change basically everything in my life if I wanted to feel better. And I had this internal knowing that everything has to change. And it did over the course of the next few years. But at this point, I knew I had to rewrite the stories that I was telling myself about my body, about my worth, my idea of health, everything. And this was the major turning point where I had to swallow any pride and admit that I was a fit, sick person. Not that I was using that language back then, but I had to admit that I knew nothing about real holistic health. And my intentions up until that point being aesthetic only, they had to change, or else I might not, be able to have kids, or this might affect me long term in a way that I have no idea. So it was a major pivotal point, and I'll stop there. But that was basically my point where I was like, I have to change. I have to figure this out.
Yeah. No, incredible. I mean, just obviously I was a part of a lot of that, and we've talked a lot about when we were apart, the things that we did, and the breakdowns and the breakthroughs. But I'll come back with some questions, and obviously we'll get to the point where, how you kind of bridged from this moment into having some level of moderation and awareness with the relationship with your body and movement and food. And for me,
yeah, tell us.
There's certain similarities, especially on timelines, wild similarities and synchronicities, but really a different version of disordered eating as far as the psychology of it. And I was always an athlete, always worked out. Like, I was the kid who was doing push-ups and sit-ups in my room in elementary school. I liked that it set me apart. I liked the fact that I was someone who worked out from an early age. I had little, I asked my parents if I could get hand weights at the sports and outdoor store, and I had little 15-pound dumbbells in my bedroom, and I would, again, 5th, 6th grade, I would use them because I thought it was cool, and I wanted to be buff, and I would look at athletes who were clearly jacked, and want to look like that and have bodies like that. And I was always someone who was pretty naturally ripped. I was a ripped little kid in middle school and elementary school.
Probably because you used weights and turned on growth hormone faster than your friends.
Yeah, totally. And so it was always a part of my life, but the aesthetic was always a part of my life too. And it wasn't that I was trying to look hot for girls. It's really never been about that. It was that the physical manifestations of the work that you put in set me apart in some way. And I am a type 3 achiever, and I am someone who prides themselves in all of the things that I do on excellence. I almost don't want to do something if I know that I can't be excellent at it. And so when it comes to my body and the way that my physical body would manifest, it was really, really important for me to be excellent. And here's the problem, from an early age, was defining what excellence meant and looked like. And where things get shaky is when those definitions start to veer away from what a healthy, balanced, normal definition of excellence looks like, And so my own definitions became the target that I was reaching for into my adult life. So I started with this relationship with physical activity very early, always an athlete through high school. I didn't know this, but it's important that my family has eating disorder behaviors and clinical diagnosed eating disorders in my extended family. And that is something that was
immediate.
And just totally unknown to me. Yeah, I'm not here to drop names, but it was something very prevalent, but out of my awareness when I was a kid. I didn't eat like shit in high school because my family cooked meals. We ate lots of protein and had solid carbohydrates and, fruits and veggies. But we had a lot of 90s food, we had a lot of cereal and we had a lot of Costco runs of ice cream bars and stuff, and that never mattered. But I did get pretty bulky in high school. And I remember comments about like, whoa, dude, you're getting thick and that kind of stuff. And funny enough, once I noticed that, I immediately changed. I started, working out more. And by the time I graduated high school and got to college, I had developed a relationship with my weight management through my exercise habits and the sports that I played. And it was always manageable because as long as I was working out and as long as I was playing basketball, I could kind of eat whatever I want as long as it was generally healthy. That continued through college. Always pretty good shape. Always looked muscular. And around the timeline of us getting married, which was my senior year of college, I didn't really see any change that needed to be made. But what did happen is I started studying for the CPA exam, which is a host of different exams that I had to take to get the certifications that I could have in order to do the job that I was going to be doing to start my career. And it was insane. I mean, studying for the CPA exam is wild, and there's 4 exams, and I took them all in about 3 months, which was just completely bonkers. And so what I started doing is I felt nervous and out of control. I was studying 8 hours plus a day for months. And I started to hyper manage my workouts and my food. I'd never, ever done this before. And so I was super OCD around the kinds of food that I was eating, when I would eat it. You know, it was like, I didn't know what health or non-health really was, but it'd be like yogurt, granola for breakfast and coffee. And then it would be a chicken sandwich for lunch. And then dinner was a salad and meat. But I was getting focused on amounts and repetition and compulsive behavior, which of course now I see as a byproduct of feeling out of control and somewhat stressed out in another environment, that I quickly went to what I could control and feel some level of pseudo comfort with.
And it probably created some level of simplicity for you in your day where you're like, okay, I got 20 minutes to eat. I know I'm going to eat a chicken breast. Yeah. Like you don't have to think and put your mind in other places. So there's probably a little bit of that too.
And so oddly enough, with that regimen, I got in even better shape. And so I graduated college looking pretty great. We got married. I looked pretty great. Like probably the best I ever looked. I looked like aesthetically very pleasing, if you will. And that just kind of continued into our marriage. And I worked out 4 or 5 times a week and sort of ate whatever I want. But when we had the infamous lake conversation about a year into marriage, where you came to me and were like, just in tears, just heartbroken, and saying like, I can't do this. I can't eat like this. I can't cook like this. We can't, partake in this type of lifestyle. And I was absolutely shocked. I felt like I had done something to you that was causing you a lot of pain. And so I was like, okay, let's do anything and everything. Let's fix this. Again, this is how dumb I thought about health. I was like, we'll eat more smoothies for meals. We'll do juice fasts because that's what you just sort of know. And I was like, we'll really cut back, okay? And we'll start exercising a lot. And so I went bonkers. And I will not lie to you, my underlying neuroses, OCD, compulsive tendencies, this was the little gateway that they were looking for. And I was super stressed out in my job, like very, very stressed out. I could feel that our relationship had changed. We weren't like kids having a blast, totally in love anymore. We were like,
shit is hard and we're kind of depressed. And so this just blew open for me what would become years of compulsive behavior with exercise and eating. And I didn't know anything about health. I knew how to lift. I knew how to work out, but I didn't know anything about nutrition. Yeah.
And so what I thought was healthy was lots of vegetables and fruit and white meat and lots of smoothies and juices. So that's what I did for years. All the way up to where we get 3 years into marriage. And if you've listened to the podcast, you know that around year 3 is when we started to have real issues and what would ultimately lead to divorce. I was so skinny that you would barely recognize me if you saw a picture of it.
Yeah.
I was clearly malnourished, was not even close to hitting the protein that I should have been eating. I was doing cardio almost every single day. And I was lifting 4 or 5 times a week. And so I'm about a 170 to 175 pound man now. Probably naturally, if I did nothing and just ate like I do, I'd probably be like, 165, 170. I was down to 140 or below. And which at first was, oh my God, you're so ripped. And then it was like, dude, are you okay? And I would be shocked when people would ask me that. My skin turned orange from eating too many carrots because I had this obsession with calories, and carrots are very, very low calorie and you can eat all of them. And oh, guess what? I was starving. We had nothing in the cupboards that wasn't a vegetable. We ate meat once a day and it'd be like one chicken breast for dinner. Mm-hmm. I had no clue and I was starving, and I was just like, I don't know what's going on. I remember a comment being blown away by you giving me feedback that I was too skinny. And basically saying like, sort of like mean, I'm not trying to put you on blast, but you're like, are you ever going to like gain muscle? And I would remember being like, just heartbroken and being like, I'm trying to be healthy, just no clue. Yeah. And then what I didn't know then, but I know now, is body dysmorphia. I would look in the mirror and I'd be like, oh, nice. I have a 6-pack today. We're good to go. But no clue that I'd lost all the weight in my face, all the weight on my neck.
Shoulders.
My ass was gone. My waist was like 28 inches, which is basically just my hip bones. And I spent probably a year looking like this. And it's funny because my sex drive hadn't really changed. When you're young, you can just grind through so much. I was highly productive in my work. I was
cortisol, baby.
crushing it at work. But our relationship's a mess. So we divorce, and this is such a clear problem in our relationship, both of our relationship to health and wellness. But we divorce, and I get to San Diego, and I'm just around a different environment of people, and I'm super undernourished, and put 2 and 2 together and start eating. And what I tell myself is that, like, I'm single now, I can eat what I want, meaning I can stock my refrigerator with more things than just white meat and vegetables. And so I started eating finally to the degree that I needed to at least gain weight. And I did. I gained 20 pounds within like a couple months, 3 or 4 months maybe. And
your body just like, oh just God, thank you.
But what never went away was my compulsion with the food. So I got really focused on the types of food. I didn't eat red meat, but I would eat tons of chicken.
And tofu.
And tons of tofu because I thought it was healthy and didn't realize it was made from like GMO soy. I would protein powders, supplements. I start getting really into supplements, and I'm tracking and counting, and I'm listening to health podcasts and trying to do everything that these experts are doing, missing the forest through the trees, which is, you need to be hitting the major pillars of health before you get fine-tuned into supplements and counting macros and all that kind of stuff. Oh, and I start working out twice as much. I used to work out 4 to 5 times a week, and I was still way too skinny. Now I'm working out 7 days a week because I'm using exercise and tracking my calories to distract myself from the fact that I am heartbroken and that I am depressed from being divorced and from basically being broken up with. And so what masks all of this is that I look good for the first time in a long time, and I'm getting dates, and I'm having a social life, and I'm 27 and looking pretty good all in all. My body responded really well to food, believe it or not, but I was still exercising every single day, like cardio every day, lifting every day to some degree. Even when my body would hurt, I couldn't stop. It was such a compulsion. If I didn't, so many days where I would not work, I'd be like, I know I need to rest. I'm just going to go for a walk. And then a couple hours into the day, I'm like, I got to do something. And so I end up working out, or I'm just going to jump on the elliptical for a little while or whatever. It was such a compulsion. And this went years. I got to being, we get divorced at 26. I sort of find some reprieve by eating more 26, 27 timeframe. And 2017, I'm 27 years old. I enter into a really intense season of my professional career. And I'm also continuing to do all this shit. And I'm like, all right, I can't sleep very much because I got to work a lot. So I'm sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night. But I'm intermittent fasting because I've heard about intermittent fasting. And so I start skipping breakfasts. And I'm swimming a lot. So I'm swimming like an hour before the workday, and then I'm not eating till like noon or 1. I do this for too long, and I sort of out of nowhere start losing weight, like ridiculous amounts of weight really, really fast. And chronic fatigue, like my bones hurt type of fatigue. And so I went from about 160 pounds to about 135, almost back to the look that I had when we were getting divorced. And I just know it's bad. I know something's really fucked up. So I go and get blood work, and kind of like you, my male hormones were like below low. Normal is about 3. The low end of normal, and this is very low still, is 300 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone. I was at like 150 as a 27-year-old. I was anemic. I did not have enough iron in my body, and I passed out. I blacked out in my condo, which was kind of the final straw.
Like in front of your parents, didn't you?
I was away. I called my parents. That my parents came to stay with me because they were, God bless them, they were so concerned, and they just didn't know how to. They'd tried to confront me years before about the fact that they thought I had an eating disorder, and I was like angry, hostile in response, which is very classic, and I apologize to them for trying to help me with tools that they probably didn't have the ability to communicate well enough. So they were very aware that something was up. And so, I mean, you guys have heard this story where I end up quitting my job. At 27, I realized that health and wellness is a passion. I love this stuff, by the way. I absolutely love, I can't get enough of learning, but I'm doing it in all the wrong ways. And I'm at this point now, I'm 27 years old, having adrenal exhaustion. This is full-blown adrenal shutdown, and I'm aware of what's going on. This is adrenal fatigue. I need to stop working out. I need to start eating more food. And at that point, it was less about the food, and it was more about, I just need to stop working out so much because my body just needed some time to integrate. And I was so consciously incompetent. And that's when I knew I had a problem. That's when I knew that this had become a compulsion, neurotic byproduct of trauma.
That this is not going to be something that you just fix on your own.
No. So I got to this point where I knew that I couldn't do this by myself. I had a plant medicine journey, and it was so powerful that I had to solve this before I could even deal with my divorce. That I had this vision. It was almost like I've talked about this on the podcast before. At the end of the Last Crusade of Indiana Jones, it was like when he goes through these challenges, and he's walking through these various challenges in like this cave, and there's all these cobwebs, these various layers of cobwebs that he's having to like peel through to get to the place that he wants to go. And I have this plant medicine experience where I have these cobweb type things that I have to peel through to get to the life that I want. And the life that I want is I'm healthy, I'm happy, I'm successful, I'm in love. I can't even think about that because the first layer is my relationship to exercise and food. The second layer is my divorce. And then the third is my like relationship to God or whatever. There was sort of this sequence, and it was so clear that I needed to start addressing this shit. And so I leave my way too stressful job that I probably should have left sooner. And I had been friends with and working as a contractor for different startup environments, and went to Organifi and was a part of growing Organifi. And I just, for the first time ever, like asked for help. And I hired Steven Steigler, who's a personal trainer here in San Diego. He's one of my best friends in the world. His wife, I worked with very closely at Organifi. She's one of my best friends in the world. And I basically went to him to his feet and was like, I need to start over. Like, don't be misguided by the fact that I'm lean and look ripped and I work out all the time. I want to start from scratch. I don't know what I'm doing. Help me.
Help me.
And so I started a program called Precision Nutrition, and it went through a full educational nutrition, full education on exercise mechanics. And I spent years working with him, and slowly but surely kind of limped my way back to some level of moderate exercise. And
he
food.
was really an angel for you.
Totally.
Because he started to really understand how deep this went for you. And you've told this story to me, certainly, and maybe on the podcast before, but you know, he would like check in with you like, hey man, I know you had probably a stressful day. You might be thinking about hitting the gym, but remember it's a rest day.
Yeah.
And at that time,
he did that to me as I was walking into the gym.
Yeah.
He would text me and be like, just want to make sure you're not going to the gym. But like, I'm trying to think of moments too, because I hope it resonates with someone. There were moments where I would, because I didn't mention, but I would binge eat too. And then I would purge through
like
exercise.
a whole box of cereal or something. Yeah.
So I smoked a lot of cannabis because I was coping with my heartache and if I was, for instance, in the evening sitting at home and I wasn't distracting myself with something, I was getting very sad because I knew that I had a problem at this point. And I also knew that I'd completely left unaddressed our relationship. And then I was leaving religion. I'd left religion. There were so many of these things that I'd put 0 minutes into finding closure on that were wounds. They were wounds, just open wounds that I was ignoring through painkillers. And the painkillers were food, exercise, and probably a little too much cannabis. But the cannabis would relieve the inhibitions that I would hyper micromanage with food, so that I would get high on, let's say, a Friday or Saturday night after coming back from the bars, and I had a box of Golden Grams, and that was be gone. And then I would wake up with guilt and a stomach ache and go for a 6 or 7 mile run because I knew the exact calories that I needed to burn off through the exercise.
Yeah.
And then I would feel like shit. And even though I'd burned the calories off and I wasn't going to lose my 6-pack, my knees hurt, my back hurt, my skin was aging, my hair was falling out. And that happened more than 10 times over the course of a few years. So it wasn't just that I had a moment, and so I can very much resonate with the mental health condition of an eating disorder or disordered eating, because dude, I felt trapped in this.
Yeah.
And I also felt embarrassed because I was a guy.
Yeah.
And this is a girl's thing.
That's what you were telling yourself.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like, I also had people try to tell me, and I basically told them to fuck off, you know? And that's hard to just say or admit now.
Yeah. Yeah. Heavy stuff.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up, I probably should have mentioned it earlier, but critical resource that I wish I would have had sooner is the book How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by our dear friend and mentor, Paul Chek. But he has a diagram in that book that is the yin-yang symbol. You know, everybody knows the yin-yang symbol. And one side is yin and one side is yang. And what Paul does in this book is that he goes through yin exercise and nutrition behaviors and yang exercise and nutrition behaviors. Because the idea is we are constantly in this back and forth between stress and rest and yin and yang. And so yang is this penetrating stress outward. This is lifting, right? If you're not restoring, overeating would be almost like a stressor, or undereating a stressor, exercising a stressor. You need to compensate that with rest, digest, moderation, sleep, sauna, breath work. And this beautiful formula is not calories in, calories out. It's actually yin and yang. And that, when I think about the bridge to where we're at now, is such a beautiful representation of what has been the target for both of us to get to, which is how do we have this beautiful relationship with the yin and yang of our diet and exercise lifestyles.
Yeah, I would say for me, the bridge was actually participating in the Academy of Culinary Nutrition. That was my initial bridge into really wanting to understand holistic health. And for anyone who's not aware, the Academy of Culinary Nutrition is out of Canada, and at this time I moved back home with my parents, my mom and her husband, and lived with them for about a year while I was in this phase, this Academy of Culinary Nutrition. I stepped away from dental hygiene pretty much. I was doing like temping here and there, but really focused on this program because I wanted to learn. Clearly, I didn't know anything about health and nutrition, really. I thought I did based off of like podcasts and stuff, but it wasn't real balanced health. It was all external based. And so I signed up for the Academy of Culinary Nutrition and went through that. And it's really like a program that's designed to teach you how to use food as medicine. And did that, absolutely loved it. And this was like the crack in the door to like, oh, there's so much more to food than just calories in, calories out, or is this food going to make me fat or skinny? And there's so much more to food than it being good or bad, right? And so that was definitely a bridge for me to get to where we are now. That's like, there's so much more than just, is this going to make me skinny or fat? It's like food is so much more. It can be healing and understanding the more, like micronutrients and things like that, and even just macronutrients. And I didn't understand any of that before. And so this really lit under me a fire for really wanting to understand and go deeper into true health and real nutrition. So that was definitely my bridge. That was back in 2018, I think I graduated in 2019. And that was obviously the year that we got back together as well. So there was a lot circulating around that time for me.
That's a great point. And the reason there are so many health professionals and people who are really, really intelligent and balanced and moderate about their nutrition and exercise habits out there is because they're coming from a world of having been disordered in their eating and movement patterns. But what they did is they said, I'm going to take this obsession, this obsessive compulsiveness, and transmute it and alchemize it into becoming very intelligent in this space. Because once you are informed of the things that you're doing that are negative, you are now sitting with the responsibility to change. Otherwise, it's your damn fault, And so once you equip yourself with the tools to know what cards to play and which ones to, hold, it's actually very, very empowering.
Yeah.
Because, again, it might take consultation like it did with me. It took a personal trainer, somebody who was very moderate and balanced, things that I'd told myself I'd never be able to do, but witnessing this person partake and live healthy, I started to implement them. I started to learn more. I started to have a relationship with the macronutrients, the micronutrients, and the level of rest that I needed, such that I started to feel better. And once you feel better, you have enough of the experiential feedback to go, I can change now. Yeah. I can do this.
Feeling better, even if your body changes a little bit, feeling better trumps looking a particular way any day of the week.
Yeah.
It's so much better. Once you have that baseline of like, I feel like shit and have felt like shit for years, and then you start to feel better, it's like, all right, this is it. That I have to keep going because I'm feeling better and better and better. I don't care that my body's changing a little bit.
It's like the good version of when you hit jackpot on the slot machines and you're like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to keep going for a little while because you get that feeling. And in this case, it's not a slot machine. You actually have the ability to support feeling this way into the future. It's not just happenstance.
Yeah.
I remember waking up certain days and feeling fucking awful and being like, why do I feel so bad? And just no clue.
Yeah.
And now I'm leveled with some able to self-diagnose. But I also have a lot of times I can be like, man, I'm going to actually have a lot of energy this week because here's all the things that I've been doing. I'm sleeping good and hitting my various protein goals and getting moderate level of exercise in. It's just really, really freeing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you want to go through some of our major learnings?
Yeah.
We put together a list of things that we really learned about ourselves and how we have evolved our consciousness through this enormous catalyst for both of us. Do you want to just alternate maybe?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So the first one that came to my mind was you cannot hate your body to real health. So if the foundation of our desire to change is rooted in dislike or unfair judgment of our body or body dysmorphia, we will likely resort to unhealthy habits to reach the goal at all costs. And obviously this is a problem. This is what I did. It's just low frequency all around, and it is not sustainable if we actually want to live long, happy, healthy lives and want to feel great long term. So rather, our fitness and health goals should be rooted in love for this beautiful meat suit vessel that I get to wear and traverse through this 3D life experience. So an example here would be, one of the motivations for me to over exercise and under eat was I do this because I dislike how I look in pictures, or I dislike my thighs and I'm afraid of getting fat.
Yeah.
Versus now I exercise because I love building strength and I love, making my body more resilient and harder to kill. And so that's just, a change in the intention with which we engage in different health practices. So you cannot hate your body to real health.
Totally. I love that. I had a quote or a thought that came to me this morning. And it's just simple, but what I realized is that I fought a war with my body for freedom that I never got.
Wow. That's so good, babe.
Yeah. I clearly felt my freedoms in my marriage, in my work life. What was I passionate about? What did I love? I never felt like I had a way to escape the obligations and the to-dos and the stress and all the things that I was supposed to be doing, except by going so hard in the gym and micromanaging the shit out of what I ate to experience relief, which was pseudo freedom. But it ultimately was just a trail into prison.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's really freaking heavy.
Yeah.
But I like that. I like that quote.
Thank you.
I think it encapsulates it nicely. But another thing I learned was about myself was that I was using exercise to escape the emotional baggage and turmoil that I did not want to face in my inner world. Now I do not try to escape any sort of strong or even negative emotion. I sit with them. I work through them using all the tools that I've gathered over the last 6+ years. And I know that they're there for a reason. I obviously have a great support system in you that if I'm overwhelmed with any sort of negativity or strong emotion, I don't use exercise to escape anymore. Right. I use it to enhance my life, not to escape my life.
That's really good. And really similar to me, we've mentioned this throughout the conversation, but exercise and diet became a control and coping mechanism for me. I was facing challenges and stressors that felt overwhelming and out of control. Marriage, career. I left religion.
Yeah.
I felt outside of the box. I didn't have a container anymore. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to build this structure of my health life that's going to keep me contained and safe, and I'm going to have control over it. And it's not that diet and fitness is always a bad coping mechanism. Coping mechanisms can be really important for challenging times in your lives.
Yeah, better than opiates.
Right. The problem is that this was very detrimental to my well-being. what I do now, how I've changed this is that, yes, movement and diet can be incredible complementary experiences for a stressful life. But when I engage with them in a non-stressed way, when I realize that I can have a session in the gym that is the opposite of stress, it's restorative. It might signal to my body that, hey man, I know I've been going through a lot, like I've been traveling or work's getting stressful, but I'm going to have an affectionate session with my body so that I can bring myself back into my body. My head's been in the clouds. I've been way too overthinking things. I'm just going to have a nice restorative reminder to my physicality that I'm here, that I'm grounded, and that I'm safe inside my body. And that what that looks like literally is, a 30 to 40 minute workout where you lift a couple sets relatively heavy so that you signal to your brain that I want to grow, I'm still vital, I'm anabolic, but I don't push myself past the point of fatigue, maybe not even get even near the point of fatigue. And then I eat a very balanced, as farm to table as humanly possible type meal where I'm not overeating, but I'm not undereating, nor am I tracking. I'm paying attention to my body and I'm acknowledging how delicious it tastes in my mouth. And I'm 5, 10, 15 minutes into eating. We're having beautiful conversation and dialogue, and I'm checking in with my body. Hey man, are you satiated? Is this good? So that's how it can actually transmute into something that is escapism or micromanagism and can actually become restoration.
You said jizz.
There was a jizz in there.
Next one for me, the body doesn't lie. And I have to thank Paul Chek for this quote. I believe it's a Paul Chek original. We are God to our body. And it's always reflecting back to us how well we are being God. And it's communicating to us. Sometimes the only way that it can is through physical symptoms. And we are foolish if we don't pay attention to those physical symptoms. They will start out as a whisper and they will progress to a fire engine in your ear.
Yeah.
So listen.
That's really good.
Listen when they are whispers.
Listen.
I'm listening.
No, that's really great. Watching can be slippery, meaning one of my learnings is that I have body image distortion. I perceive my body inaccurately, period.
Yeah.
Sometimes, sure, I'm significantly more aware of what it looks like than I did before. But what this means is you've got to change your way of evaluating your health.
Yeah.
If you are using the mirror or a scale. I was less concerned about weight, but I was checking in the mirror. Oh, 6-pack still good. 6-pack still good. 6-pack still good. Weight though, dude, you're peeling off the pounds. You are not looking well. But I couldn't see that. And now, candidly, I'm never buff enough. So it's always on the opposite end of the spectrum. And so one of the quotes that I saw in my research here for this episode I really loved, and so I saved it. It said, "Make peace with the mirror and watch your reflection change." How good is that? So
good.
So what I've done is I have an awareness that if a thought bubble comes up when I'm looking at myself in the mirror that says, "Oh, you got to dial that in a little bit more," then I know that that's just my system. And my system's giving me that little, it's like I've got a light in my car that always says service tire change. And I've gotten it in, I've gone in and they've checked it out and they're like, "We don't know, your software is just doing something weird. We can't close the little screen. So you just got to exit out of it every time it pops up." That's what I have to do. I have to exit out of that little screen that pops up into my head.
And just say, "Oh, thanks, but no thanks."
And it's not that you should never pay attention to certain things, but listening. Hey, am I hungry or is this a craving? Am I actually needing nutrients or is this a craving? Do I have nocturnal erections? That's a huge one for men. Do I have morning wood when I'm sleeping? Does my boner, show up? Those are really, how's my digestion? Am I pooping 12 inches a day of solid but not too solid poop? Those types of things are the lanes that I'm looking for, as well as making sure you still find me attractive and things like that.
I do. Next one for me. Foods are not, quote, good or bad. Yes, some foods are healthier than others, but you've probably heard this quote before, like, a piece of happy cake is better than a sad kale salad, right? So it's like speaking to the frequency with which we're in when we are consuming these foods. So if I'm consuming a kale salad out of hate for myself because it's like, girl, you need to be skinnier, not good, not good. So foods are not good or bad. They are neutral. And so that means that I am not good or bad based on what foods I do or do not consume. Who I am has nothing to do with the foods that I choose to put in my body. Real, like me, who I am, my essence, my eternalness. It has nothing to do with the good or badness of the foods that I eat. So, yeah.
Awesome. Really good. And same for me. I think that leads to this sort of like guilt and shame environment. I learned that I'm a perfectionist, and that perfectionism for me shows up in the form of my body. And it's not, I've really spent a lot of time, like, it's not about beauty for me. It's not about like making sure that I'm sexually appealing. There are certain tones of that for sure. But to me, it was food and exercise is a showcase of my perfectionist tendencies and my obsession with excellence. And if I set unrealistically high standards for myself, which I do in my life just at large, of course, body image and the way that I look is going to creep in there. And because it's so accessible and controllable, it's going to be really easy to hyper focus on that area over the others. It's a lot easier because today I can go to the gym, today I can get groceries, versus I'm working towards the promotion at work, or I'm working towards growing my business. You get this sense of relief for your perfectionism by scratching the itch of something. And unfortunately, exercise and diet is so available that if you are someone who needs to be excellent, you can scratch the itch through these unhealthy outlets in the form of compulsive eating and exercise.
Yeah. It's almost like immediate feedback too.
Right.
You know, pretty quick.
And so the big shift for me here, the big learning for me here is that exercise and diet is not an outlet. It's not a reliever. It's not a place that I can go to repent for all of my sins, if you will. Rather, this is a domain of love. And this is a space of growth and learning and medicine and communication and communion with my body and with the fraction of our Creator that lives within me. This is the garden that I get to water through the practice of moving my body and listening to what my body wants to consume in the form of food. And so that's been the big shift for me, is like, this is not on the table of my little perfectionism excellence space. This is actually a communion, a relationship with almost a friend or a loved one.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Next one for me. The hungry ghost of external validation never gets his fill ever. So if your primary reason for exercise, for eating a particular way, is external validation, literally other people saying you're doing a good job, you look great, you look awesome, you look buff, wow, what are you doing? There will never be enough compliments to completely feel fulfilled. It has to be more than that. It has to be deeper than just what other people think about you and are saying about you or your body or your physique or whatever. The hungry ghost of validation never gets his fill. Ever.
I love that. That's great language to frame a really powerful feeling. This is so simple, and I should have known this a long time ago. Too much exercise or not enough exercise is stress. Too much food or not enough food is stress. And my life, all of our lives are probably stressful and chaotic enough. So make sure that your exercise and eating habits have a proper level of restoration as a part of them. It's okay to push it every now and then. It's totally okay. When you're younger, you can get away with a lot more. But as you get older, there is a restorative, rebuilding aspect to your diet and your movement that is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. My body is not actually a misbehaving prisoner. So when a symptom pops up, the first response from me should not be anger or frustration, like, oh fuck, you're just never fully happy, are you? Or like, I'm not never doing enough right for you, towards your body, right, or whatever. Just like being angry, like they're misbehaving somehow. Rather, my body is my home. She's my friend, and now I treat her that way. I'm not going to say that I'm always perfect at this. I still am working through inner dialogue with myself, judgment of what I see. I can't say that I've fully arrived, and I never have those thoughts ever. But now, like you were talking about, when they pop up, I can coach myself through where I can easily get to a different frame of mindset, like within a couple seconds, but they still intrude from time to time. They still pop in my head. There's still things I wish were a little different here and there. And, I don't know if that will ever completely go away. All I can do is manage the dialogue, manage how I respond to those thoughts popping up, like feeding them, or, saying like thanks, but no thanks. I don't need that judgment today.
Yeah.
Thank you for your attempt at discernment, but I'm going to go this way instead.
Oh, it totally still pops up for me too. During the pandemic, when we were locked down, like full lockdown, we had no access to gyms or any of that. I lost way too much weight. I had no access to lifting. And so I started doing a little more cardio. Like, I'll just compensate with a little more cardio, walked a lot more when we were walking outside. I lost 50 pounds, or not 50 pounds, Jesus. I lost 10 pounds and I broke my rib. And so I could feel those compulsive tendencies on like making sure I don't lose my progress on my physique here. So it comes back up. That wasn't that long ago. And those things really do creep back up. Last one for me, just from my personal lessons, this takes time. It takes help. It's slow. It's about as slow as learning something. You don't make an overnight switch.
It's like learning a new language.
It is. And this quote that I read from Lori Anderson, I don't know who you are, Lori, but I love your quote. It says, "There is no magic cure, no making it all go away forever or immediately. There are only small steps upward, an easier day, an unexpected laugh, a mirror that doesn't matter anymore." And what I love about this is, if you've been in this hellhole of micromanaging your life through exercise and nutrition, you count things. You can't not. You're counting your weight, counting your reps, you're counting your food, your calories, your macros. The more you count those things, I often have found that you lose laughter and goofiness and dancing and play. And so if you're going to count anything in this relatively slow process of getting out of this compulsive state, start quantifying how much you're laughing. Take note of those moments where you lose track of time because you're having so much fun or you're in such deep conversation. I knew that I was turning the corner in my life when I would catch myself dancing or humming to a song by myself in the kitchen, or when I would just catch myself out of the corner of my eye looking as if I had a happy and healthy expression on my face in the mirror, just out of nowhere. And those are the things you should start counting. And I really do think slowly but surely you're putting 1 penny away a day into the happy, healthy bucket, and you will feel a significant change in the pressure to count the calories and the gym sessions and all that kind of shit.
Yeah, absolutely agree. That's great. Last one for me. This was a huge aha moment. I don't know, probably a few years ago. It hasn't been that long, but society's definition of beautiful changes like fashion trends. So just about every decade or so, there's a new look, especially for women. And this comes and goes and changes with seemingly like the wind, or I don't know how these things change and then take root in our consciousness of like, oh, that's what's beautiful now. I don't know how that happens. If
Yeah.
it comes from the fashion world
I've always
or
wondered that too.
who we're looking at on Instagram or the Kardashians, whatever the Kardashians are doing with their body. I don't know where it comes from, but it's here. And these trends, move in and out about every decade. And what I've learned is I cannot morph my body with the ever-changing fashion trends and expect to maintain any sort of real physical or mental health. Rather, if I am truly listening to my body and what she needs from a day-to-day basis, and then also like what season or cycle of life am I in? Are we in? If I am delivering to my body what intuitively I know she needs, then whatever shape my body takes is the shape she is meant to be in that season of my life, right? So this was felt like a major aha moment for me a couple years ago. Was like, you know what? If I'm doing what my body is communicating to me that I need, whatever shape my body takes is the shape she should be. And it was just like mind blowing, but it's so simple. It's so like, duh. But we get so, especially as women, and I know this happens for some guys as well, but especially women, we get so like tunnel vision with like, oh, that's what's beautiful. I need to look like that. Okay, I'm going to change my body to try and look as close to that as I can. But that changes all the time in society. And it's just, again, it's a different type of hungry ghost.
Even, again, in my research for this, I was reading some very interesting quotes from like Cindy Crawford, for instance. She never referred to herself in her pictures. She would call it the image because it was so distant from reality. And
Interesting.
Cindy Crawford's a famous like model from the 90s, which again, we're both born in the 90s, and hyper skinny was like totally in back then. But she would refer to herself as the image when she talked about her work.
Wow.
Because it was so distant from reality.
That's actually really wise.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Guys, we've talked a lot today. We've talked about our journeys. We tried to do our best to educate on some 101 around eating disorders and disordered eating. And it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
So what we had wanted to do was list like 5 or 6 things that are just like, boom, takeaways. If this resonated for you, or if this is something that you feel would be helpful for anyone in your life, because likely there is somebody who could benefit from just a conversation around this that's safe, So we've got, this is the last thing on this long, lengthy
Very long.
podcast. Takeaways.
Yeah.
Just what can you start today? Maybe we'll just rapid fire back and forth on
let's
these.
just do rapid fire for sure. So first, the fit, sick person is real. You cannot judge someone's health just by a ripped picture that you see on Instagram. You have no idea what's going on in their body or in their brain. No idea. You have to keep reminding yourself of this truth all the time, maybe every day. If you find yourself in comparisonitis, the fit, sick person is real.
Yep.
You have no idea what that person is going through in their body or their brain, hormonally, blood work. You have no idea.
Super good. If this conversation today resonates, if our stories resonate at all, that is an intuitive nudge for you to make a change, for you to have a safe conversation with someone from out of a place of love.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's okay to ask for help. In fact, we encourage you to look for a coach, trainer, or therapist. We always recommend people look for a Czech professional. They're usually very qualified to take on a diverse array of physical and mental and emotional challenges. You can go to Czech Connect and look for a Czech professional near you, but that would be a great starting point.
Absolutely. Something to think about is, if this is you and you are currently in sort of your orthorexic or otherwise hellhole, can you tell someone you trust that you're struggling in this area? It doesn't even have to be a coach or a trainer or a therapist yet, but can you talk to a friend, a sibling, a coworker that you trust.
Yeah.
Not in any expectation that they will be able to fix it for you. Simply just the act of saying it out loud is like the first step towards like moving towards a different direction in your life. So telling someone, sharing with someone can be really cathartic.
Love that. Start small. You don't have to completely overhaul your life. And in fact, it might be more challenging if you try to.
Yeah.
It might make it worse. So start small. If you work out every day and you're like I did, just one day a week, take a rest.
Yeah.
You might feel better. You will feel better. I guarantee you'll feel better. But just, you don't need to start taking 4 days off a week. Just start with one.
Yeah.
You're eating 1,200 calories a day like you were. What if you just add 200 or 300 a week? That's an extra avocado a week.
Yeah.
See how you feel. You'll feel amazing. If you don't eat any meat, you're vegan and you're deteriorating. A couple eggs.
Yeah.
A couple eggs a week.
Yeah.
1 egg a day.
Bite of chicken.
Bite of chicken. Just see how you feel.
Yeah.
You feel great.
You'll feel great. Fill your life with more of what you love that's not necessarily exercise or health related, right? So this could be hobbies or other things that you love, relationships that you love. You will have a more palpable experience of what actually matters in your life. And this is love, it's connection, it's joy, it's purpose. It's making memories with people that you love. When you're on your deathbed, you're not going to be thinking to yourself, damn, I really wish I would have squeaked out one more set.
Right.
You know, or I really wish I would have lost that extra 5 pounds.
Right.
I'm about to, encounter God, but I didn't get that 5 pounds off. No, you're going to be thinking like, I wish I would have hugged my person more. I wish I would have told so-and-so that I love them. I wish I would have forgiven that business partner that screwed me over. These are the things that we think back on and either regret or want more of when we're at the end of our life. So, it's sort of like taking a zoomed out view of reality.
Yep. Super good. Right after you listen to this episode today, spend some time thinking on a scale of 1 to 10. How am I pooping? How am I sleeping? And how is my sex drive? Those are critical factors for determining whether or not you have some adjustments in your diet or movement lifestyle.
Yeah. And for women, it could also be menstruating.
Yeah. Or men for nocturnal erections or having morning wood. They're really important indicators. Push off the scale for a little while. Push off the mirror for a little while. Let's check in on those 3.
Yeah. I think you should share the last mantra since it came from your brain.
I thought of a little mantra that I encourage everybody to tell themselves, whether it's right after listening to this episode or later tonight or as you go to bed or whenever your quiet space is where you feel like you can really communicate something to yourself. I thought of this little mantra that makes me feel good. Mm-hmm. It says, "Hey body, I am ready to be your friend, and I know that you've been waiting for me." Hey body, I'm ready to be your friend, and I know that you've been waiting for me.
Communicate to me what you need.
This is the prodigal son returning home to the open arms of the Father.
Yeah.
That is the relationship that you have with your body. It loves you. It really, really loves you.
It's working so hard for you all the time, every day, 24/7.
Yep.
And it deserves, she deserves, he deserves, they deserve.
They, them deserve.
They, them deserve all the love.
Yep.
And we get to gift that to our bodies, to our meat suits.
Yeah. I hope that everybody hung in for this 2-hour episode. It's really close to home, really meaningful, and what will be the kickoff to at least a couple more conversations around this topic with some guests who are experts.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. Like I said, jump into YouTube, give us a comment, share this episode on social media, have a conversation with a friend around this topic. It is relevant, bro. You read those statistics. You heard those statistics. It is in our life. Let's transmute this thing.
Yeah.
It has the potential to be a catalyst into a wave of healthy diet and exercise habits that we can all partake in as a culture.
Before we go, I got to know, what is your medicine today?
Oh, my medicine. I talked this morning to just one of my best friends in the world, just so happens to also be an incredible mentor to me, and he's a marketing genius. And we just had a lot of fun brainstorming different ideas. And I'm reminded of how important it is to have highly intelligent men who sharpen you in your life. And he almost is like a tool for bringing out the most fun ideas that I have in my head, and I would never have thought them or brought them out had he not asked the right questions. And so Will Hughes, he's been on the podcast actually. He's just a genius. I love him so much, and he's just been an incredible friend and mentor to me, and I had a great jam session with him today, and it just gets me lit up about possibility when I talk to him. So that's my medicine, a little bro time.
Love it. Love you, Will.
What about you? What is your medicine today?
My medicine today has been something that I've been doing for the last few weeks, doing my best because we've had some travel and things that kind of disrupt a little bit, but that's okay. So what I've been doing is consuming 30 grams of protein at least within 30 minutes of waking up. And previously, I would eat something upon waking, like within the first 30 minutes or hour of waking up. I would have like a Paleo Valley meat stick. Love Paleo Valley meat sticks. They are so good, but it's not enough protein for me.
You need like 5 of them.
Yeah, so there's like 6 grams of protein. They're not very big, and so 6 grams, little fat, like it's good, but I wanted to see how I would feel in increasing that protein and making sure that it's like basically right when you wake up. So I've been having Greek yogurt with a scoop of vanilla protein powder mixed in with a little maybe granola or berries or something, and eating that in the morning while I am in my quiet time and reading and everything. And I've noticed, one, my digestion throughout the day has been better. So like just better poops.
Yeah.
And also having a little bit more in my system before I go and work out has been really nice. Like I just feel more energized in my workout, which obviously makes sense. And so, yeah, I've really been loving it. And it's a great way to get in more protein, because we hear a lot from people that like, how are you getting that much protein? Well, if you're waiting until 11 a.m. to eat, you probably are having a hard time getting in protein, especially for women, and men certainly too. But for women, a lot of us don't do well with like intermittent fasting or fasting in general. And so healthy hormones, happy hormones really want a good source of protein really upon waking, especially before coffee or caffeine. Really
good point to attach to this conversation today, where we talk a lot about the stress state.
Yeah.
And that exercise is a stress state. It can be a stress state, I should say. Fasting, not eating enough is a stress state. So when you wake up after having not eaten all night while you're sleeping, you're in a stressed catabolic state.
Yeah.
And they say in order to pivot that, you need to consume food, and you need at least 20 to 30 grams of protein to pivot from a catabolic state to an anabolic. So a lot of people fast and then they go work out, and that's stress on stress on stress. Some bodies can handle it. Great. Other bodies cannot. And what other people do is they'll have a little bit of food. They'll be like, I'll just have a half a banana and a little bit of whatever. That's not going to change you from a catabolic state because you've been fasted for so long. So that first meal of the day, if you've been fasted and you actually want to shift your catabolic nature into something that can actually be more anabolic, restorative, more prone for building muscle and having even cognitive benefits, you really need like 30 grams of protein is a good number. And I love that you're doing, I'm doing the same thing. I think it's a good thing to try on.
Yeah. I've been loving it, and it's been medicinal. You guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate you listening, tuning in, sharing it, commenting on YouTube. We would love to hear your thoughts on this topic, this episode. We love you and we mean it. We'll talk to you next time. Go spread some light. Okay, bye.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.